It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. How are you? He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good to see you're back.
Glad to be back.
You're sounding good.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with my voice while I was gone. I had some kind of bacterial infection somewhere. I don't know. We'll find it. It's none of my business. The doctor's taking care of it. But it's one of my favorite lines. Alan Arkin. I can't remember the name of the movie, but he plays. Who else was in it? Was Al Pacino? But anyway, they were a gang of thieves at one point, and they become old, and then they go and they get Alan Arkin to be the driver in a heist they're going to pull off. But he's in a home, assisted living. And they were like, "Oh, how's your health?" And it's none of my business. Oh, and only the way Alan Arkin could deliver lines like that. He was the best. And I just stole that line from him from that movie and have used it I don't know how many times. But I'm feeling good. I'm worn out because my fever has been pretty relentless over the past few days. And it tends to take something out of you. So other than that, I'm fine.
You mentioned Alan Arkin, and we were earlier talking about the movie industry because we were reading John Nolte's column in Breitbart.com. It was like tax credits, tariffs. The only thing that's going to help Hollywood, none of those are. The only thing that's going to help them is producing good movies because right now, movies suck. Because you want to make money? It's got nothing to do with tariffs, got nothing to do with anything else except your movies suck. And I was thinking when you mentioned Alan Arkin, I just loved him in Argo. Wasn't he great?
Oh, my gosh. Going in Style was the movie I was talking about earlier. Yeah. But Argo was another great one, based on a true story.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was.
What a great 2012. That's 12 to 13 years ago that movie came out.
Yeah. Ben Affleck was on with Theo Vaughn on his podcast, and they talked about that briefly. But it was it's a great thriller. Even if it weren't true, it'd be a great thriller. But it was a good movie.
Yeah,
Very
they
good movie.
exaggerated parts of it.
Yeah.
but the
as
basic,
they always do.
but the biggest thing is that it is a true story.
Yeah, based on a true story. Yeah.
Well,
they had to put something together, basically like that. The whole front for the operation.
That's all true.
Yeah, that's all true.
The parts that weren't exactly true it was actually easizer for them to get through the airport.
Yeah, when they were leaving.
Right, that's the movie on the Iranian hostages.
Yep.
Even though they were scared, and even though they were because they were being checked and going through the airport in Iran had to be hectic, but there weren't, for example, all of the Iranian soldiers in the trucks chasing the plane
them
down the
on
runway.
The tarmac, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was exaggerated. But Alan Arkin just had this way of delivering great lines. It was such a dry sense of humor. Loved it.
Is there anything like? I get chills thinking about it. I remember when the Iranian hostage, crisis happened, and I remember when they got out.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything more rewarding in a movie when the stewardess, because it was 79, the flight attendant,
right,
gets on and says, "We're now out of Iranian airspace."
What?
And the one guy comes up to, what's his name? who's I can't think of you just mentioned him, the actor.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, who's sitting in his seat, who's the CIA agent. And the one guy that had great doubts that he could actually get him out, the one hostage, he just looks at him, he looks up at him, and just shakes no words are said. He shakes his hand, and then it flashes to Alan Arkin and John Goodman.
Yeah.
Dancing and jumping up and down. They're out, and just because if people don't know the movie, the thing by now, how the CIA got them out was they sent in Ben Affleck as a movie producer,
right,
and that all the hostages became part of the movie.
It was Tony Mendez. He was a CIA officer.
Yes.
He and his wife both worked for the CIA for years.
And so they pretended that they were doing a movie, and they all became part, and they all had their roles. The hostages walked right through, and the process, and a lot of that's true. The process of going, to the administration and the State Department and saying this is our idea, because some of the ideas were just crazy of how to get the hostages out. I'll walk in as a movie producer. I'll be a movie producer from Canada, but we're doing a Hollywood movie, and I'll go in and meet all the hostages, give them all the fake documents, the Canadians provided with all the false passports,
right?
Created false passports for them, and they all became directors and would pretend directors, and they went through the lingo, and then they just walked right onto the airplane and got out. But when they're jumping up and down, at the end, I mean, that was just, just went, and that's where you had and John Goodman was that famous movie makeup artist,
right?
Who had won, I think he won an Oscar.
Yeah.
But he actually worked with the CIA on projects. You imagine that happening in Hollywood today. We've been talking about that's a great thing that he worked with the CIA, and he knew. He knew when they contacted him, it's like, okay, I've helped you before. What do you need? We need you to set up a fake movie.
Right.
That's being produced by Canadians.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
But that was what a great movie that was.
It's great suspense. It's a great story. And
I remember though when it was going on. I mean, it was as if you think back, and it wasn't the same thing as Biden, but it was so much frustration that it seemed as if the president of the United States had no power or no influence on Iran to get them out. None.
Yeah, right.
And which was part of Jimmy Carter's demise.
Yeah.
And by the way, the hostages that got out weren't the hostages that were being held by the Iranians. These are the ones hiding in the Canadian embassy. I want to make that clear.
Right.
The ones that weren't actually hostages. Okay, I want to make sure I called them hostages before. I mean, they couldn't go anywhere, but they were hiding in the Canadian embassy. They had gotten out, and so they were hiding at one of the Canadian diplomat officials' homes. That's where they hid. So But what a great story that is. But
the Canadian caper, basically, is what they called it back then. But it's when you think about Hollywood, you think about again the lost ideas or losing focus on what the idea should be when it comes to entertainment. It's a very simple process. Make something that's entertaining. That's it. Yep. Because if you think about it, they put the messages everywhere. The agenda is everywhere. Even in the superhero movies, it's all over the place. In kids' movies, it's everywhere.
A perfect example of it, though, we've talked about it before, because it was just pure insanity. And a lot of the stuff they just put together and just went, okay, it was Seinfeld.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it was a show about nothing. Of course, it wasn't, but
Right.
but it was just the most entertaining characters you could possibly imagine, who were all nuts.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because I saw somebody complaining. I forgot, this goes back a few months ago. Well, I mean, they portray all these people. Humor is all these people that are insane, and you just don't find people like that in real life. It's like, that's what's funny.
Right.
Normal people in our everyday lives, doing a sitcom on me, going home after work, going to sleep, waking up, having coffee, turning on the TV to see what the news is, sitting with the cat, nobody's going to view as a comedy.
Right.
Except a comedy of a life of errors.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Exactly. It's like, they're not the most moral people. Well, no, that's why it's funny.
Right.
As I always called
characters.
As I always called 2.5 Men, I always called 2.5 Men science fiction. I go, what do you mean? It's a comic. I go, no, it's science fiction. I go, what are you talking about? I go, Charlie Harper living a life of a complete alcoholic.
Yeah.
And as promiscuous as you could possibly imagine, and suffers no consequences at all.
Exactly.
That's science fiction.
Right.
And that's what made it ridiculous. You're not going to find, you find the characters. The whole goal was entertainment. That's the goal.
Yeah.
It didn't teach you any those shows didn't teach you any lessons. They weren't meant to teach you a lesson. It was meant just for entertainment.
Well, but because the humor lies in the absurdity. Or
exactly.
Or
the total
even
absurdity, right.
Or even in the action movies. Okay, is a guy going to hang on to the side of a plane as it takes off and then remain there until it lands, like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible? No.
The one scene in the beginning where he's hanging on?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Those
things really don't happen.
That massive tower in Dubai where he's crawling on the outside of it. Shut up. But I'm watching it.
Yes.
It's never going,
And even though it's Tom Cruise and he can't die, there's still a tremendous amount of suspense.
Right. Well, and not to give away the ending of John Wick 4, but the ending of John Wick 4, I look at my daughter, and we waited to watch that movie together. We waited over a year to watch it together on Christmas night because it's a Christmas movie. And I said to her, I looked at her and I said, yeah, I don't buy the end. She goes, of all the things in the John Wick 4 and all the 4 movies, that's what you don't buy?
Well, that's why, I saw some criticism. Some of the New York bishops, went after Trump for being, for the AI of the Pope, and then he sent it out. And you and I looked at it, and I'm Catholic, and I'm like, it's hilarious. Why? Because of the absurdity of it.
He's kind of poking fun at himself.
Yeah.
But also in the same way, for being self-promoting, he knows he does that.
Right.
But also he's being self-promoting in a current topic. And I don't know. I'm not Catholic, but I didn't find any harm in it.
Well, it's also the the absurdity that making fun of some of his followers that believe he could do anything. He could be Pope if he wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
That it's the absurdity of it is what makes it humorous. It's like the Babylon Bee. You and I read the Babylon Bee, it's like, whoa, man. But it's funny because it pokes fun at the absurdity of things.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that when the Pope died, then the Babylon Bee is a Christian, is Christians who do parodies. It's like a Christian Mad magazine for adults.
Yeah, right.
And when they did the thing that, because it was a knock at Biden, and I didn't understand it when I first read it about, today, a day after, a couple of days after the Pope died, he's extremely active and his mind is working well. And I went, oh, man, that's not, until I realized what the message was. They were poking fun at Biden.
Biden, right.
And how the media covered Biden. That's
right.
what.
Exactly.
That's what the absurdity was. And so to make a point about an absurdity, you go more absurd, which is what they did.
Yep.
And once I realized what it was, I went, oh, man, that's brutal. I mean, it's brutally funny, but there is humor in it.
Yep.
And again, when you're in the media, there is a thing called the fact of black humor that there isn't anything that isn't funny at a particular point when you cover everything. And I think that's just because sort of the numbness that people believe. I've never gotten numbness because of covering things in the media, but I understand the humor of it. But that's the point they try to make as well. I mean, because you cover things in the media, you become numb. Therefore, everything is funny, and that's why black humor is funny in some way. And I'm like, well, no, black humor is funny because it's funny.
Right. It's either funny or it isn't.
Right. Because normally it's making a completely absurd point about something that may not be as absurd, but you had to go more absurd to make the point of the absurdity of the reality of what you're talking about.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah. It is where humor often lives, in that great absurdity.
Yeah.
There was the Blazing Saddles is the primary example of that, if you ever need any example.
Why did I go through that explanation? All I had to say was Blazing Saddles.
Right. That, again, it's what today's generation has completely lost. You can't do that. You'd never get Blazing Saddles made today, ever.
No.
Nobody could ever make that movie today.
Nope. 866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Dry weather is expected this week for much of the far west and Midwest. Conditions that lend itself to a continued rapid pace in crop planting.
Warmth will arrive across the nation's midsection. Look for temperatures up near or even possibly slightly above 90 degrees for the weekend as far north as the northern plains.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says Midwestern heat will continue into early next week. Before that, the spring heat wave will kick off midweek in parts of the western U.S.
Temperatures have already started to come up along the Pacific coast and starting to move inland. By the time we get into the late week and the weekend, we will see temperatures approaching 100 degrees in California's Central Valley. We will see temperatures well above 105 degrees in parts of the desert Southwest.
After a week of unusual moisture for the region this time of year. I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, earlier we were talking about paying off college loans. But look, if you're going to college, you should look for a return on your investment, correct?
Yeah.
If you're going to spend a certain amount, you want to be able to make a certain amount. CNBC came out with, and this is, I believe, from the Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, came out with the 10 worst paying college majors 5 years after graduation.
Okay.
I think they also do 5 years after graduation, then mid-career. And then also, this was done just a week before, the best U.S. undergraduate majors for early career earnings and also mid-career earnings. I'm not surprised by any of them.
Yeah.
And it's something that has remained consistent for a significant period of time. There is no reason to go to college today and when you pick the career not know what it's going to pay.
Right. Yep.
The
Especially
information's
today.
out there. Yes.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. All right, so since the whole thing of college loans and not paying them back is a big sort of, for some people, controversial issue, it's not for us. It's like you took out the loan, you pay it. But I didn't get the job that I want. Well, that's on you.
Yeah.
Or the college lied to you, or whatever. You didn't do your own due diligence. But you know, this is some good advice here, and we normally don't give good advice
Ever.
Yes, but this is good advice. If you are going to take out a loan for anything, do not pay attention to what any other party has to say. You do your own due diligence.
Yeah.
Anybody who will benefit off you taking that loan, do not listen to.
Right. Yep.
You're the one taking out the loan. You have the burden. They're receiving the benefit. You pay attention to what you want. All right, there you go. You know, you're ready now for the best U.S. undergraduate majors for early career earnings. And these are for the median annual incomes for workers the ages 22 to 27.
All right.
Okay? And the median annual income for the number one jobs out there. They're in three categories, but almost the same thing. It's $80,000 for chemical engineering, computer engineering, and computer science. Number one. Number two, $78,000 for ages 22 to 27, median annual income, $78,000 for electrical engineering, $76,000 aerospace engineering and industrial engineering, $75,000 mechanical engineering, $71,000 civil engineering. Anybody notice a pattern here?
Yeah. I think I'm picking up on one.
And the best paying jobs are people that actually are involved in the making of things.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, paying $70,000. These are the median annual incomes for workers age 22 to 27. $70,000 for construction services, economics, finance, general engineering, miscellaneous engineering, physics. Number 7, $65,000 for information systems and management, mathematics, and nursing. Remember, undergraduate, not master's or doctorate degrees.
Right.
$60,000, accounting, engineering technologies, general business, international affairs, miscellaneous technologies. $58,000, miscellaneous physical sciences. And $57,000 for marketing. Okay, that's after that when your age is 22 to 27. Now, the mid-career earnings, 35 to 45. You ready?
Okay.
Here we go again. $125,000 aerospace engineering, computer engineering, $122,000. $120,000 for chemical engineering and electrical engineering. $115,000 mechanical engineering, computer sciences. Economics and finance, $110,000. Industrial engineering and miscellaneous engineering, $108,000. Then at $100,000, business analytics, civil engineering, construction services, engineering technologies, general engineering, information systems and management, international affairs, mathematics, physics. $99,000 miscellaneous physical sciences, $92,000 miscellaneous technologies, $90,000 chemistry and general business, marketing, and political science. Because political science does not appear anywhere in your 20s. But if you last till you get into your 40s, you end up probably in politics.
Yeah.
Which is so there you go. That is the best. And as you can see, all the top are in engineering.
Yeah.
All the top.
Right.
People that but in the entire list, all the top salaries go to people involved in making things, constructing things, and the systems behind doing that.
Well, it tells you where the demand is and is always going to be.
Yep. Now, you ready for the 10 worst paying college majors
All right.
5 years after graduation? The worst? Foreign language, $40,000. The 10 worst undergraduate majors for early career earnings in the United States, median annual income for workers ages 22 to 27. So you're talking about the starting salaries. Foreign language, $40,000. General social sciences, $41,000. Performing arts, $41,000. Anthropology, early childhood education, family and consumer sciences, general education, miscellaneous biological science, social services, theology and religion, $42,000. Now remember, though, theology and religion shouldn't be in there because you're not supposed to make money doing that.
Yeah.
The 10 worst undergraduate majors for mid-career earnings in the United States. Boy, they don't escalate as fast at all as in the top jobs. Early childhood education is the worst, $49,000. Elementary education, $53,000. Social services, $54,000. General education, $55,000. Special education, $55,000. Secondary education, $58,000. Theology and religion, $60,000. Miscellaneous education, $60,000. Family and consumer sciences, $62,000. Health services, $65,000. All that from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. All the statistics come from them. And it's the analysis of the 2023 U.S. Census Bureau data that was published in February of this year. So you can sit there and say, well, education should pay more. We're just telling you what it is.
Right.
Not what you wish it was or not what it should be. And that's the point when people say, well, I didn't know. Well, the information's there.
Yeah.
There was a lot less information. You know, there was a lot less information, but I didn't need the internet. I had my father. What are you taking in school? Well, Dad, I want to be a DJ, so I want to get a BA in DJ. Engineering, idiot.
Yeah.
What? Engineering. Oh, no. Engineering. Engineering. Oh, I heard that my whole life.
Yeah, sure.
Not my whole life, no. But a significant portion. Probably up to, how old was I? I heard that until I was about 38 from my father. Be an engineer. And I remember the moment that he switched. I know the exact moment when he said, you need to stay in the radio.
Yeah.
When I worked at our great affiliate out of Chicago, WLS. And my father had a conference that day, and he'd flown in from Buffalo, and he came up and visited me, and he sat in and watched the show for like 2 hours. I remember the producer got him a coffee. He was like totally impressed. He was like, we're driving home. He looked at me and said, you need to stay in this business.
Yeah, it's, I don't know what to say to young people in terms of, pounding it into their skull of what the demand is going to be in the future. But there are very basics in a society that are going to have a demand for people. Engineering, electrical engineering is a big deal.
Yes, huge deal.
But also engineering, petroleum engineers. I have a couple of those in my family.
Chemical engineers.
You have to. you're going to have to be a part of, again, something that will always have a demand, right?
Mhm.
That goes from the very simple, although it's a very hard job of construction to, again, the engineering of infrastructures and everything that a society requires essentially every day. Because if those jobs go away, one of the reasons that you're seeing the pay levels where they are is because companies have to pay more and more as we move along, where that kind of job kind of ages out, right? All right, well, people aren't willing to do that job anymore. Well, then you offer a little more. Then you offer a little more. The pay scale goes up because this kind of demand is based on the very basics, again, of a society. What's required every single day.
I did look up something else because this is a question that I have. Outside of an undergraduate degree, if you're talking about where jobs because of AI may come about, I looked up to see what the average salary is for a robotics technician.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm assuming a robotics technician is somebody who can repair robotics,
Right.
which is going to be necessary. And I look at it now and I'll say, okay, I look at what the salary is now, but what will the salaries be down the road? Because the average annual salary for a robotics technician in the United States, $58,744.
Mm.
In Texas, $66,000. High earners potentially reaching $92,000. I have a feeling that that's going to increase because of AI and the lack of people wanting to be robotic technicians because you're getting your hands dirty.
Yeah.
And I think with the great acceleration, which could boom over the next 10 years, because AI, robotics, whatever, everything breaks. Everything.
Yep.
And so a tremendous amount of money, I believe, you'll be able to make there. But already, if you want to be some type of technician, as we've talked about, diesel engine technician, automobile,
Yep.
tech. Any of these people make great money. And the potential to catapult from there to other areas is also huge.
Yeah, it is, because it also goes into, then you go into engineering and designing of future engines and everything else, depending on, where you want to go. These techs that they fill the bays with at a repair place, and they can't find nearly enough. Diesel tech, automotive tech, they're in constant growing demand. That, along with, medical, the medical field right now has a ton of vacancies, and that's going to create a lot of problems, going forward. I think it's already creating some issues now. But again, what is it that's required to keep a society going when you have that mindset? If you're a hands-on person and you don't mind getting your hands dirty, then there are a ton of jobs out there that pay really, really well.
Yeah. And the other thing is you're setting yourself up correctly, because if you're a tech, you're always having to learn.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
required.
your mind's always moving, which is what you need as you get older in any industry. Because if you're constantly learning, that means you're a self-starter.
Yep.
Because a lot of it's outside of work. You've got to do homework.
Yeah.
Which means you're dedicated, and believe me, that's what they're looking for.
Yep.
866-90-RED-I.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-I.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now, one job that was not on the list was radio talk show host for either the top or the bottom.
It's never on the list.
Well, that's because we're paid in crypto and coffee.
That's right. Mostly coffee.
Yes. So that's... But there's no reason... I think the reason I found that interesting to promote that is the fact that there's no reason, because we started this all with the college loans, there's no reason now, in this day and age, the information's out there. You know that whatever you take in college, you can look and see the parameters of obviously what you're going to make in any particular area of the country.
Yep.
You can know what it pays.
And if you're looking to do certain work that doesn't pay, you should know and you should plan accordingly.
Yes.
And if you're looking for pay, you can find plenty of work out there.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.